was one of the first girls on the Today Show before anyone ever heard of Barbara Walters. She won an Oscar in 1968 for playing Warren Beatty's hysterical sister-in-law in Bonnie and Clyde. But the theater's where she always knew she belonged. Welcome to Women in Theater. I'm Linda Weiner, theater critic of Newsday, and our guest is Estelle Parsons, who for 5 decades has made theater as smart and unusual as the life she has led. Hello. Did they really call you girls?
I would like to explain that situation, if I may.
Certainly.
At that time, if you saw this movie that David's in, Good Night and Good Luck, if you notice,
David Stratham.
There's one woman who basically is an assistant, that everybody in the newsroom is men.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it was well before women's lib. It was 1950-51. At that time, there were men, and I was one of 8 people who put together the show before Dave Garroway was hired. And there were 3 women. We were production assistants. One came from California with the producer, Mort Werner, who was an incredibly creative guy and became a vice president of NBC before he finished. He set up the Today Show, then he saved it, then he saved the Tonight Show. He was really an extraordinary talent. And there was Jerry Colson, who came from California with him as a production assistant. And there was myself, who came from nowhere, from Marlborough, Massachusetts, and school and odd jobs, and was a production assistant. And there was a woman named Mary Kelly, who came to us, I think, from your show of shows.
But you ended up on camera, though.
Well, we were in, the Radio City, we were in the, I forgot the name of it, but it was the display place for television things on 49th Street, and that was what was our newsroom. The news department was totally men. And I was on the set, Dave was on the set, Jack Mascouli, and Jim Fleming were the 3 news people. Then there was a guy who ran the tape machines, Cal Broadhead.
Yeah, but
and there were all the men who did the cameras, and then there was me as an assistant. And I was not meant to be. I was not a member of the union, AFTRA. I was not paid anything more than probably $150 a week or $90 a week or something at that time in 1950 as a production assistant. I simply happened to be there. I was not paid talent.
Over
so
time,
that's the
you
picture, if I can just sort of
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Over time, though, you did end up on camera. You were doing reviews.
Let's see what happened. Something happened. And Dave Garroway came over to me one day because I was writing all the book features. Mm-hmm. We all sort of took different areas. I had book features. I had odd things, like Gene Shalit was a PR person at that time. He'd bring me these stacking stools and all these funny things, odd watches and stuff to put on. And I did maybe fashion. I don't know, I did a lot, but I was doing the book features, and one day, and I would write a little thing inside the book so Dave could read it. And then one day he came over to my desk and said, "You know a lot more about this than I do, so why don't you tell them about this book?" So I did. It happened to be Walt Kelly's book about the origins of the human race, a book that I just adored anyway, but nobody knew that, and it's a wonderful book. So I did it. And I don't know if what led to my being eventually the first woman to do news on television. Pauline Fredericks was on radio, and she was a very highly respected commentator, but she simply couldn't get on television. There was no such thing as women's news on television, so I'm probably one of the few people who sees this movie now, Good Night and Good Luck, and appreciates the fact that it's all men. I don't think anyone else who sees the movie cares anymore that it's all men. But it was all men. And then the producer of the Today Show decided that I would go as part of the political team to follow Kefauver to New Hampshire and so on when he was running for president. So they put out this big book, the NBC team. So that's how I became the first woman to really do news reporting for network. But I think I'm missing a few steps in
That's
there,
all
and I'm
right.
sure you
That's
don't want to
okay.
hear them.
No, it's women in theater. Women in theater who started in TV is the, you know, is the preface. So you left there because they wanted you to cover Grace Kelly's wedding?
Yeah, I was there 5 years. I went on the CBS morning show briefly, and then I went to a show called Home, which was part of Pat Weaver's Concept Today Home. We could talk all day about this. It's fascinating, actually. But he had this big concept, Today, Home, and Tonight. That was what television should be. So
Pat
I
Weaver,
went
of course,
from,
Sigourney Weaver's father, yes?
or she's his daughter,
Well,
let's
yeah,
put it that way.
Sure.
So anyway, I went on Home, and at that time they didn't know whether to make me the lead person on Home, an unknown, so though I was in the Bubblegum series already for NBC, but I was still beginning, or whether to give it to Arlene Francis. So they gave it to Arlene Francis, and I was a special projects editor. The terrible thing is I had no interest in the whole thing. I came to New York to sing, and I just happened to know somebody at NBC who said, come and meet this producer from California. We hit it off. We became great friends, his whole family with my whole family. And there I was in TV, and everybody was saying, how did you get this job? I want to get into TV. And I felt terrible because it was my 9 to 5 while I was making the rounds trying to get singing jobs in the theater.
And immediately into Happy Hunting.
Happy Hunting, yeah.
With
Ethel Merman.
Ethel Merman.
And Fernando Lamas.
That's not a bad way to land for your first job.
Well, it was a pink contract. It was a chorus contract.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly more than I should have had, if you know.
Was that when you won the Theater World Award as most promising personality? I like this. Did they rewrite that so it's no longer personality promising? Yes.
I don't know what that is. I don't know.
Okay.
Is that what they call it?
That's what they used to call it, I think.
I don't know.
But
I didn't win that. No, I was on a pink contract for Happy Hunting, but then they didn't like one of the men reporters. I was a girl reporter. And so they gave me all his lines, and then Russell and Krauss said to me, oh, you're going to have a great career, you know, you're really talented. So that helped a lot, because here I was in a chorus contract, you know, in a musical. But it was the beginning. But I won the Theater World Award for the first play I did, which was many years later. A few years later, 62, something like that.
Okay, thank you very much. But you went to Conn College as a political science major, and then you went to one-year law school?
Well, I thought I'd go into politics. I didn't really. I was, you know, from Marblehead, Massachusetts, and I was in the theater all the time. I was a kid. I started when I was 7. I thought it was 6, but now I think it's 7. And
glad we set that straight right here.
I was playing leading roles in all the children's plays. The person who ran the company was quite well known in New England, and she immediately started to sort of groom me to act, which was great, because I think it kind of saved my life from a not very happy childhood, just the nature of my personality. I don't think happiness was in the cards for me. But I worked in the theater all the time. I was a kid, but it didn't seem to be something I'd do when I grew up. I couldn't get my mind around doing that when I grew up. I had a sort of intellectual side. I was always number 1 in my class all through school. And so I thought, well, I'll go into politics. I'm very good at, you know, I used to do sound truck stuff. I'm very good at politicking, and my father was a local politician in the Massachusetts House of Legislators. So I thought, well, I'll go into that. And my grandfather and my father were lawyers. Harvard Law School did not accept women. So I went to BU for 1 year. There were 3 women and 293 men, and some of the professors wouldn't even call on us. That was nice. And then I was accepted at Harvard the next year, but I would have to start over again because they were only going to take women in their freshman class. You can imagine by now I had had enough of the man's world. And I thought, if I get to be very successful as a lawyer, I will be so lonely. And I hate to tell you this, I know now it's maybe 50% women. It's still a man's world. They're still not in the old boys club. I know that a little bit from experience because my husband's a New York lawyer.
Yeah.
So I see what goes on. It can't be helped. I think men are men and women are women.
I mean, you've been really articulate about the situation for women in theater.
But you know, theater is great because a man really can't take your job except maybe at La Mama.
Yeah,
And that's good.
but there may not be as many good roles.
Oh, no. No, of course not.
Yeah. I have this quote here that you said in 1983, most roles for women are stupid, stereotypical, male-written, male-directed, and the figment of a male imagination.
Isn't it true?
Yeah.
Most.
Yeah.
Not almost.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Zindel wrote wonderful characters for women, which I did many of.
Yeah.
And Oliver Haley did, and I did a play of Edward's as well.
Yes. Edward Albee's
An adaptation of Edward Albee's, actually. Malcolm.
Malcolm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know that. Malcolm.
Mhm. No, it ran very briefly on Broadway. Ruth White and myself, and
Yeah.
Alan Schneider directed it.
I hate to keep throwing you with quotes, but they've been so good.
Yeah, but I'm a different person
I know
now.
that, but now you can deal with that person. Now you can tell us who that person was. How about I never wanted to do anything else but act, but I tried everything else. And because I knew it would be a terrible life, and God knows it is. Is it still as terrible a life as you expected it to be?
It's a terrible life in this way. I think Lee Strasberg said in something he wrote or an interview that actors in America, great actors in America, trifle all their lives. It's as if a great violinist just played trivial things all his life and never played the great material. It's a good example because I think American actors are always just trifling with acting, so to say, and never play the great material. Just don't have an opportunity to play the great material, have really a terrible life in the sense of not getting to exploit one's potential. You know, one doesn't get to do roles over and over and over and over and over, classical roles. Yeah. There's less and less, in my opinion, high-level classical work. There may be a lot of small companies, semi-amateur company, even pro companies doing classical work, but if you want to work with the best talents, the greatest talents, where are you going to go to have a classical life,
So
the great dramatic literature?
What do you do? How could it be different?
Well, it could be very different if somebody wanted to have a high-level classical company. You know, I work with Al Pacino, or I have for a few years now. We've done Oedipus, Yeats's Oedipus, then we've done
That's
Salome.
on the West Coast you did the Oedipus. Hasn't been here
No,
yet?
we do everything here. We did Oedipus at the Actors Studio and then at the Darrell Roth Theater.
All right.
But
And
just on Dark Nights. And Salome we took to Broadway.
Salome with Marisa Tomei and
Marisa
Pacino.
Tomei and Alan Diane Wiest and David Strathairn.
Yes.
And then we've been working on Strindberg's The Father. So basically I'm doing what I can. And I did have a Shakespeare company for Joe Papp for a couple of years. So I'm just giving an example that there should be a person who would do this and would make it possible for the best talents to be involved. You see, my work with Alan, Diane, and Marissa, and David, and many, many other actors like that, Aidan Quinn and so on, it has to be done around our schedules, our commercial schedules, which is fine because we do manage to do it.
Yeah.
You know, we've done in the course of maybe 4 or 5 years, we've done 2 extraordinary pieces in many, many different ways, and have embarked on a third. So, but I think theater depends really on one person having a vision and really being willing to, not willing, but obsessed to realize that vision. And it's very hard. When I had my Shakespeare company with Joe Papp, I mean, I had to give it up. I had a child at that time who needed a mother. And I just had to stop doing that kind of work, and I just have never started again because a lot of my spirit came out of vaudeville and singing in clubs and playing the piano and doing reviews and doing musicals, and a lot of my spirit is that kind of, you know, Ethel Merman spirit. Get up there and get it out, you know, and which kind of comes in conflict with the great dramatic literature, so I do the best I can in both fields. But I think it's fair to say that everybody in America would be a lot better off, everybody in America, if classics were taught properly from the first grade on, as they are in England. I mean classics, dramatic literature, great dramatic literature in the English language, Shakespeare, so on, and O'Neill, and so on, Tennessee, whatever. And they're simply not taught here in the same way they are in England. I don't mean to hold England up, I just mean it's too bad that we don't have a sense of the importance of the nourishment of theater for people living in a civilized society. And you see theater is growing smaller and smaller. I'm looking at these signs and I'm thinking, 100 years from now, will anybody be sitting here with those signs? Because I'm not sure there will be theater left, except very small, what's beginning to happen, very small groups doing their thing. Yeah. And that appeals to a small group of people. So the idea of, you know, people falling down dead to see Eleanor Aduza or Sarah Bernhardt or something, or anybody else in the world, has gone by. Now you can't really make much of a living in the theater. Everybody young has to go into television to make a living, and then do theater as a kind of hobby, actually, because you can, not enough people, not enough talented people can make a living in it. So.
Did you feel you were able to make a difference at the Actors Studio?
Well, I did two wonderful things. I did a festival of the group theater. The group theater, of course, was one of the most important things in American theater history. And I meet people who come to audition for me now, and I say, have you heard of the group theater? They're from Juilliard or Yale or NYU or wherever. They've never even heard of the group theater. And of course, it was the most important theater movement in this country. So I did a festival of the group theater, and we found all 23 plays and read them, and it was astonishing. And a man came with his kids who were being homeschooled, and he said, this is fantastic. So you see, I have this little bent to go in the sort of teaching area as well as, even though I don't like to teach, and I'm not a teacher really. And I also did a festival of plays that started at the studio and went on to Broadway. We couldn't do them all because they went to off-Broadway. Every great and not great playwright passed through the studio when Kazan and Lee were there, so we put all those together and did them again. But did I make a difference there? You know, the studio is really a gym for professional actors, so I don't know what kind of difference I could have made. It's a space that we can all use, and I still use, and Al and I use when I have anything to work on, and then we have sessions where you can be critiqued by your peer group, but it's not a school in any way. So I don't know that I could make a difference, except I think through the festivals, and of course make a difference by encouraging young people and giving them really good work to do there, which they don't get on the outside. Young people are terribly discouraged because, I mean, I'm talking about really fine talents, because there isn't enough work to go around. I could work, you know, once I started working, I worked all the time. Off-Broadway, I did musicals, and I got tired of them because most of them were so bad, and then I started acting just by chance, really, and that first play that I won an award for. And so I've been able to act all my life, but then along came a time when you couldn't make a living at it anymore, where you expected to do things for nothing, and now young people, good people, have a job maybe every year or two. You can't pursue something that requires your whole body and spirit and intellect and emotional life. You can't pick it up and do it 6 weeks a year. You know, so at the studio I was able to create a lot of projects that put a lot of people to work. I had a play of Adrian Kennedy's. I did a piece with Joe Chaikin just before he died. So I tried desperately to give people an opportunity to act, because the only way you can act is to be acting. It's not the same as one-on-one. If you are there in front of 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000, maybe up to 1,500 without microphones, you know, if you are there in front of them, there's a certain kind of energy that's created, and you're a totally different person than you are when I'm here talking to you, and there's no substitute for that. Sitting in a classroom is not a substitute for that. And you can learn your skills and being quiet in the wings and all that by doing it. But you know, not to have that experience is terrible. Terrible.
I said at the beginning that theater is really where your home is.
My life
is that
is.
so? I mean, you have, of course, been on Roseanne as Roseanne's mother, and you were in Dick Tracy, and you've done the Hollywood thing
I've done
a
about
little bit,
13 movies.
a little bit. But from the start, you got an Oscar and should have then, by all rights, been out there.
Oh, I wasn't interested.
Been out there, you know,
I'm not
doing the
interested in
starlet
those
thing.
things.
And what were you doing? Peer Gynt in Central Park right after that?
I don't know if I was doing that or Mahogany. I don't know. I had a
you know,
lot
it
of...
was something insane in terms
but
of
you have
what.
a strange attitude. You think one should go from theater to movies to TV and be happy in those media. That's the way you're talking to me.
Who
As
said
if
that?
I
That was
should
my
be doing
attitude.
that. You're saying, well, you were Roseanne's mother. Well, you could have gone the Hollywood route. Why?
Well, that's very
Why
interesting.
would I go
Why?
the Hollywood route?
Why would I want you to?
Fame and power. What have they got to do with acting?
That's delicious.
Where does an actor act? In front of people.
Yes.
Film is a director's medium. I don't know what TV is. TV is something that comes into your living room. We had some great TV people. We had Arthur Godfrey and Dave Garroway, and we had Dinah Shaw. But they don't know what to do in TV. They put people up there with no personality. And now, and it's a personality medium. Yeah. And now they're not going to have one newscaster. They're going to have three. They can't even get one with talent. Where are they going to get three? But theater is my life and always has been.
Yeah.
And just because I was totally fouled up as an adolescent and growing up in a place where theater was not acceptable, certainly not acceptable to my family.
Family went back to
I
Mayflower?
couldn't do it. My family goes back to 1632. The one that we've traced so far, Cornet Joseph Parsons, was a cornet in the British Army in 1632 up until the Revolution. Then they all fought in the Revolution. He was a beaver trader on the Merrimack River up in New England.
And great-grandmother Mary Dodge
Yes.
wrote Hans Brinker?
I don't think so. I don't think that's the same Mary Dodge.
You don't?
No, I think she was Mary Alvina Dodge. No. But my mother was Swedish, you know. She came
Yes,
over
I
here
know.
when she was 9 months old. So half of me is pure Swedish. I don't know which half. I'll have to figure that out.
All right, that's for you to figure out, I guess. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of Arthur Penn in your life?
In my life?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Terribly important in my life because I always, my sense of truth professionally, I mean theatrically, my sense of theatrical truth never squared with the kind of 4 weeks and up rehearsal period and move here, move there, and talk like this and talk like that. I always felt I was in the wrong business. And then I started working with Arthur, and he had a revolutionary rehearsal technique, which was for the actor, I'll try to be very brief, to read the play. You read the play in the beginning. Obviously, you sit together, you read the play when you're all going to do a play together. And then you would read a scene and you would get up and attempt to act it out in your own words. This is the actor's nightmare. And so we rehearsed Skin of Our Teeth. Annie Bancroft, who just married Mel Brooks at the time, was playing Sabina, and I was playing Mrs. Antrobus.
And this is Berkshire in
Berkshire Theater Festival, another incredibly important year in the American theater that nobody knows anything about. No. But anyway, we tried this technique, and all of a sudden it occurred to me that I was in the right business, that I really was an actor, and that it was my inability to get along had to do really with kind of the structure of commercial theater that hadn't worked for me, and I didn't have a personality to deal with it. Some people are lucky to have a personality to deal with it, but I couldn't find my theatrical truth in that structure somehow. I guess it wasn't developed enough. I don't know. I'm fine now, but I had a really hard time going along.
Apparently, if I'm correct, then it was Arthur Penn gave you the script to look at Bonnie and Clyde, and that's why you did it.
I was working with him, and the reason I did it was that I wanted to continue working with him. And it's certainly my best work. some of my best work. I've done some other good work. But
Miss Margarita's Way.
That movie was certainly, well, Miss Margarita's Way is a different thing, you know. It's done direct to the audience. It's not really playing a character in a play. And at that time, I was getting very, I felt very kind of stuck. The audiences were getting less responsive. As on Broadway, I used to work on Broadway all the time, and we were all saying, what's with the audiences? Because they got used to television, and the energy that you usually get in the theater from the audience seemed to be diminishing it. But I, in my own progress as an artist, I felt constricted by a character. I felt I wasn't reaching the audience with my characters. So
you went to do this play. We don't have very much time. That basically is about terrorizing the audience.
It's about totalitarianism. It was written about a totalitarian regime in Brazil. So it's a very political play.
Yes, it is.
But it's about anybody in your life who is an authority figure, and not a good one.
I can understand.
Well, good and bad.
Thank you so much, Estelle Parsons,
for being
here. This is it. I'm so sorry.
We didn't get much time.
And thank you for joining us. On behalf of the League of Professional Theater Women, I'm Linda Weiner, and this has been Women in Theater.